أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. حدثنا أبي بن كعب عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ubay ibn Ka'ab narrated to us that the Prophet ﷺ said, أن موسى قام خطيبا في بني إسرائيل, that Musa عليه السلام stood giving a sermon to the Israelites, the children of Israel. فسئل أي الناس أعلم, so he was asked, who among the people is the most knowledgeable or knows more? Not most knowledgeable, I would say more knowledgeable, right? And a lot of translations make that kind of quick jump and say most knowledgeable. The reason you can't say most is because it doesn't say al-a'lam, it's not superlative. A'lam without the lam ta'rif is comparative, it's not superlative, right? So ana, he said, I know more. And of course this means in the context of among these people, I know more, right? فَعَتَبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, so Allah reprimanded him, إِذْ لَمْ يُرَدُّ الْعِلْمُ يُرَدَّ الْعِلْمُ إِلَيْهِ, whereby knowledge was not attributed back to him. This red piece is actually sharh of the hadith. لَامَهُ وَخَاطَبَهُ مُخَاطَبَةً مخابطة الإدلال وطالبا منه حسن مراجعته ومذكرا له بما كرهه منه. That's all explanation, so I'll skip that part. Okay? That's just from a muhaddith. In any case, إذ لم يرد العلم أو يرد العلم إليه, you guys just did مضاعف, I believe. I was hearing some مد يمد مدا فهو ماد, right? So when you say الأمر منه for radda, right? So we rudda, ruddi, and urdud, right? So the majzoom version, the lightest version, could be yarudda and yaruddi and yardud, and that's why you find lam yarudda. You see, that's actually a live example of what you guys just did. It could have been lam yaruddi and lam yardud also. All three of those would have been acceptable. Anyway, so as whereby knowledge was not attributed directly to Allah, even in that, and here is a moment of pause for us to understand that the Prophet Musa is not being reprimanded the way you and I get reprimanded. Like if I, for example, say, some obnoxious person asks, Ustad, who knows more Arabic in the room or something? And you say, well, Ustad, Adam does. No, you should have said Allah knows better. No. In a given context, you can say who knows more. And clearly he didn't say who's the most knowledgeable. He just said among you, I am more knowledgeable. But prophets have a higher standard than normal people. And even things that are actually completely harmless, for us to say, Allah will hold prophets to account for even those things. And this is actually a way of Allah distinguishing the standards He has for us from the standards He has for prophets. And this is the case even with our Prophet ﷺ. He is reprimanded in the Quran, he's corrected in the Quran over things that for any other human being would not be a sin. They actually wouldn't be a problem at all. The fact that he frowned at a blind person, for instance, and the word abasa means just a bulge on the forehead. He got frustrated as a blind person kept interrupting him in the middle of a conversation. And by the way, blind people are much better at hearing. One sense is gone, the other sense gets heightened. So he's fully aware that he's in the middle of another conversation. And the Prophet didn't say, stop, I don't like what you're doing, I'll talk to you in a second. He simply developed a bulge on his forehead, which is completely acceptable. By the way, even more acceptable because a blind person can't possibly be offended by a bulge on someone's forehead. That's not even possible. And yet the ayat came down, right? So they're held to a standard that we're not held to. And this is an example of that. And if you don't keep that in mind, then it just becomes casual. A thought creeps in the minds of a Muslim. Well, prophets made mistakes. They kind of messed up sometimes. No. Hold on a second. They are still ma'soom anil khata. And we have to hold ourselves to that belief when we read the text of the Quran too. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I talked to you about Sulaiman alayhi salam ever? Or Dawood alayhi salam? Because when the case of Sulaiman and Dawood comes up in the Quran, it makes it seem like they made a mistake. Like it makes it seem like Sulaiman missed a prayer, for example, alayhi salam, because he was taking care of horses. That's the common way that part of the Quran, Surah Sad, is explained. إِنِّي أَحْبَبْتُ حُبَّ الْخَيْرِ عَنْ ذِكْرِ رَبِّي, right? That I, as opposed to remembering my Rabb, I just took care of the horses. As a matter of fact, that tafsir is rejected by some classic, because I could not, there's no authentic narration that says that he missed prayer, first of all. And second of all, from the text of the Quran, it's very difficult to just accept that at face value, that he took care of horses and missed salah. And it's even more difficult to accept that because just a couple of ayat before, or the previous ayat, I can't remember, he's awwab. He constantly keeps going back to Allah, repeatedly goes back to Allah. So he's already been described as someone who, like, unusually remembers Allah a lot. And in the very next ayah, we're to assume, based on the words an dhikri rabbi, that he missed prayer. And you know why they say he missed prayer? Hatta tawarat bil hijab. Tawarat, what pronoun is that? Tawarat. She, right? But it doesn't say who she is. So they say until the sun disappeared behind the veil. And they assume it's the sun because it's feminine and the sun is considered feminine. The ayah doesn't say tawarat al-shams bil hijab. Now tawarat, you guys just did sarf. What pattern is that? Tawarat. Ta'awana, isn't it? What is a feature of ta'awana? Each other. Is this? Can you say about the sun, a single entity, each other? The sun with something else. Actually, what he did was he was taking care of the horses. He made battle horses. He made them march. He made them mush, and they go next to each other, and they together disappear until he can't see them anymore. Tawarat is used for the horses that he was taking care of until they went off into the sunset, in a sense. Okay, and actually, the an dhikri rabbi is I love taking care of these horses, inspired by my remembrance of my Rabb. I'm actually taking care of these horses because they're going to do the work of the deen. He's doing this fi sabilillah. Hatta tawarat bil hijab. So there's another reading of the same text which doesn't violate any authentic narration, except it violates what became very popular historically, just a popular interpretation. Yet it retains the integrity of Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? So once you have certain principles in your mind, like the integrity of prophets has to be retained, then the way you read the text becomes different. And the way you question text also becomes different. You know, we don't jump to conclusions about prophets alayhi salatu wasalam. Oh, anyway, there's one more thing about since Sulaiman came up. So when the horses came back, when horses come back and you're a horse trainer, what do? You check on them. You check on them. And they make it sound like he was so upset that he missed Salah that when they came back, or when he went back to the horses, he said, bring me those horses, and he slaughtered all of them. Okay, he slaughtered all the horses. And Imam Razi comments all the opinions about those ayat, you know. فَتَفِقَ مَسْحًا بِالسُّوقِ وَالْأَعْنَاقِ. He began to mash, I won't translate mash yet, by the limb and the necks. By the limbs, the legs, and the necks. Okay? So most scholars say, مَسْحًا مِعَنِي مَسْحًا بِالسِّكِّين. He passed over a knife over all of them. He sliced all of them. These horses made me forget my prayer. And then the scholars got into this whole debate about, well, if he slaughtered horses, he must have done this fi sabilillah to give them as sadaqah, as dhabiha, as, you know, to give out. And because they couldn't fathom that a prophet would just, because, you know, what does it sound like at face value? He became upset and he lashed out at the horses. But, you know, when you mess up, and especially if you miss a prayer, you don't blame anyone else. Who do you blame? Yourself. They say, well, no, he just saw his opportunity to slaughter horses and give them in charity. I'm like, that's not what the text is saying at all. I don't know how you... So Imam Razi said so, and I could not... I don't agree. I read Shawkani, I don't agree. Then I read Ibn Kathir, I was like, I can't agree. I don't know. Ibn Kathir, ya rahimakallah, I really love you, but I just can't. My conscience is not sitting well. I'm going to keep reading. And keep reading it. And then Imam Razi. And Imam Razi says, I don't agree. I was like, oh, go on. And he says, if mash, the word mash, means to like slice, then you know, what do you do with فَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَيْدِيكُمْ in the Quran? Do, you know, when you can't find water, do masah over your heads and your hands. If Salat time came, you didn't find water. You know. So I was like, such a gangster, Razi. That was awesome. And then he says, and also when you slaughter in Islam, originally slaughter is an act of mercy in Islam. So the way you slaughter is not by torturing an animal. You slaughter them in the neck. But the ayah says he sliced their legs and then the necks. Why would a prophet torture an animal? Slicing its legs and then its neck. He says then, actually the horses come back after being exhausted. He pats them on the leg and he strokes them on their neck, which is what you do when horses are exhausted and you're checking on them. It's describing what he was doing. And it's completely consistent with the text. And you don't have to imagine the word sikeen, knife, in the text. Like, integrity of prophets. It's not hard to retain. Just be Just commit yourself to the text, you know? With all due respect to the other opinions, with all due respect, this is more convincing. Wallahu ta'ala. Anyway, so it's another example of that. He said, I know more. And this is sometimes important for a teacher to say. This is also important to defend. You know, if, sometimes students are acting obnoxious. Why aren't we learning chapter 7? Why are we learning chapter 4? I know a little bit more than you. Just a little bit. I'm not saying I know everything, but can I just teach you right now? Okay, fine. Sometimes you do have to put a student in place. You have to remind them of their place. And you have to do that sometimes. And by the way, he's teaching Banu Israel. They kind of have a tendency to get out of line a little bit sometimes. So sometimes they have to be told, Ana a'lam. Just listen, will you? I know. And what kind of question is, Ayun nasi a'lam? What kind of question? You ask a prophet, who of the people is more knowledgeable? If you follow a prophet, isn't the answer to that question automatic? Isn't that a question you don't even need? And when a ridiculous question like that is asked, then you know what? It has to be spelled out. So he's not in the wrong for doing so. Anyway, Allah uses it as an opportunity to take him on a journey. And so, Bala. فَقَالَ لَهُ بَلَا. Not at all. لِي عَبْدٌ بِمَجْمَعِ الْبَحْرَيْنِ. Of course, I do have a slave right at the merger of the two seas. هُوَ أَعْلَمُ مِنْكَ. He knows more than you. قَالَ أَيْ رَبِّي وَمَنْ لِي بِهِ. Yes, ay means yes, of course. And also another meaning is e. E and ay, similar words. Rabbi, وَمَنْ لِي بِهِ. وَرُبَّمَا قَالَ Sufyan. Sufyan is the narrator. Ay Rabbi وَكَيْفَ لِي بِهِ. Who is it that I can be with him? How can I get to him? Who is it and how can I get to him? Those are the two variations of the narration. قَالَ تَأْخُذُوا حُوتًا. He said, go take a fish. فَتَجْعَلُهُ فِي مِكْتِلٍ. And put him inside a miktil. Miktil means a basket. It's my notes. وِعَاءٌ يَشْبِهُ الْقِفَةِ. حَيْثُمَا فَقَدْتَ الْحُوتِ. Wherever you lose the fish, فَهُوَ ثَمَّهِ. وَرُبَّمَا قَالَ فَهُوَ ثَمَّهِ. Then exactly that's where it's going to be. And perhaps the narrator said not thamma, but thammah, which is an appreciation of how sensitive narrators were. I can't remember if he said thamma or was there a little H at the end of when he was saying thamma and he said thammah. So he says, since I'm not sure, I'm going to say, I think I heard Sufyan say thamma, but he may have said thammah. Now, وَأَخَذَ حُوتًا فَجَعَلَهُ فِي مِكْتَلٍ. So he took the fish and he put it inside the basket. ثُمَّ انطَلَقَ. So then he marched forward, he went ahead. وَهُوَ وَفَتَاهُ يُوشَعُ بْنُ نُونٍ. He and his young assistant, his young lad, Yusha, the son of Nun, Yusha ibn Nun, which the Bible calls Joshua. That's the biblical Joshua. حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَيَا الصَّخْرَةَ. Until they approached the boulder. So they approached this large boulder. وَصَغَارُ رُؤُوسَهُمَا. This is saga is a separate word, or should be sa'a? Sorry. وَضَعَ رُؤُوسَهُمَا. They placed their heads on the rock. Like they leaned at it and they just kind of passed out. Okay. فَرَقَدَ Musa. So Musa woke up. وَاضْطَرَبَ الْحُوتِ. And as he woke up, startled, the fish actually it got disturbed. تحرك مع أنه ميت. The narrator or the muhaddith is actually explaining, it started moving despite the fact that it's dead. وقيل كان مشويا. It's also been said that it was roasted already. It was already roasted fish and it just kind of started moving and فخرج. So it left. فسقط في البحر. So it fell into the sea. فاتخذ سبيله في البحر سربا. Then it took into the sea a path that looked like a mirage. I'll skip and it made a small opening, kind of like, the wake. It made a wake. So this makes it seem like they were, in fact, the narration makes it seem like they were walking inland and then it jumped into the beach. Okay? فَأَمْسَكَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْحُوتِ جِرْيَةَ الْمَاءِ. So Allah held the fish on the flow of the water, meaning the fish didn't jump into the water, it went on top, like a jet ski kind of thing. So Allah held it on the surface of the water. فَصَارَ مِثْلَ الطَّاقِ. So it went like a spear, like it went forward like a spear. وَهَذَا مِثْلُ فَقَالَ هَكَذَا مِثْلُ الطَّاقِ. So and then the narrator says this is what a spear looks like, and he started kind of demonstrating visually. And so they say he did some visual demonstration, and they put that in the narration as well. فَانْطَلَقَا يَمْشِيَانِ بَقِيَّةَ لَيْلَتِهِمَا وَيَوْمَهُمَا وَيَوْمِهِمَا actually should be. Anyway, so they both started moving forward. They went ahead, they didn't realize the rest of their night and the next day too. So 2 days worth like a whole 24 hours worth of travel. They continued. حتى إذا كان من الغد, until time came of the evening, early morning. قال لفتاه, he said to his young lad, آتنا غداءنا, bring us our lunch. لقد لقينا من سفرنا هذا نصبا. This is directly from the Quran. We've met with quite a bit of exhaustion. ولم يجد موسى النصب حتى جاوز حيث أمره الله. And Musa did not meet with any exhaustion until he had way past where Allah had commanded him to be. In other words, Allah did not give him any sense, any inclination that he's passed beyond where he's supposed to be. قال له فتاه, so his young lad said to him, أرأيت إذا وينا إلى الصخرة, did you see when we took refuge towards the boulder? فإني نسيت الحوت, then I had forgotten the fish rather. وما أنسانيه إلا الشيطان أن أذكره, and none but shaitan made me forget to mention it at the time that the roasted fish actually woke up and took off. واتخذ سبيله في البحر عجبا. Now that I think of it, it did take a really strange way into the sea. What's ajab about a fish in the sea? When it's dead, two, it's on the surface, not under. It's going, you could see it going. فكان للحوت سربا ولهما عجبا. So the fish actually looked unreal. For the fish, there was this mirage-like looking wake that was there, and both of them found it strange. By the way, this hadith saying lahuma ajaban suggests that Musa saw it too. Because it's not lahu ajaban, it's lahuma ajaban, right? And that further corroborates ara'aita, didn't you see also? Because the Fata, Yusha, is talking to Musa alayhi salam, suggesting Musa saw the fish take that road too. But Allah made them not remember, and then he attributes that to shaitan. تعجبا من أمره لأنه خارق للعادة. This is sharh, so we won't go into that. قال له موسى ذلك ما كنا نبغي. Musa said, that is what we were in pursuit of. فارتد على آثارهما قصصا. So they retraced their remnants, their footsteps, step by step. قصصا means step by step. رجع يقصان آثارهما. So they came back, tracing their steps, حتى انتهيا إلى الصخرة, until they ended up at the boulder where they originally were. فإذا رجل مسجن مغطى بثوب. مغطى is the sharh word. So when they saw a man completely wrapped up, enveloped in a garment, فسلم موسى. So Musa said salam to him. فرد عليه. So he responded to him. فقال, and he responded to him by saying, وأنا بأرضك السلام. And how do you people say salam where you come from? You just say salam, you don't introduce yourselves? So the man kind of was a little bit aggressive and said, this is it, this is all the salam you guys do where you come from? Anna bi ardika salam. And notice he doesn't say, wa anna bi ardikuma as-salam. It's as though Musa alayhi salam has already grabbed the Fatah and said, let me do the talking. And now he's getting put in his place a little bit. Qala ana Musa. I said, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. I'm Musa. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Musa. I'll introduce myself properly. Qala Musa bani Israel. Musa from the children of Israel. Musa of Bani Israel is mudaf mudaf ilayh. Musa bani Israel. Okay? Typically a proper name is not used as a mudaf, right? But in Old English, I am David of Camelot or something. So they use of instead of from. Like nowadays you say, I'm Mike from Chicago, but you don't say I'm William of Dallas. You don't do that. You say from, but in Old Arabic and old languages you use a lot of, right? So Musa of Bani Israel, قال نعم أتيتك لتعلمني مما علمت رشدا. I came to you so you could teach me from what you've been taught in terms of uprightness and guidance. قال يا موسى. He said, Musa, inni ala ilmin min ilmillah. I am committed and I'm committed to knowledge from within the knowledge of Allah. Allamanihi Allahu la ta'lamuhu. That Allah has taught me that you don't know.